With the exception of the coin market cap, everything that is taught in this video is summarized. I would also like to remind you to give my channel a like and subscribe to it so that you can stay up to date on future XRP news as well as other cryptocurrency news in general. Take a look at this now, shall we? A surprising explanation for why Ripple would appeal the verdict of the court. Matt Rosendin, the creator of the cap symbol for the digital securities platform, has predicted that the company Ripple, which is based in San Francisco, will ultimately challenge the most recent court order to impose an injunction over the company. As part of the final conviction, Ripple was forced to pay fines of $125 million, as stated in a story that was published by You Today. This was seen as a significant success for the firm due to the fact that the aforementioned number is substantially less than the $2 billion that the SEC was demanding and therefore significantly lower. In spite of this, Torres has also issued an injunction against the corporation that is located in San Francisco. The purpose of this injunction is to prevent any further violations of securities regulations. Despite the fact that the terminology employed by the court is vague, the court has ordered institutions in the United States to purchase XRP tokens from the market rather than acquiring them directly from the business. The adoption of the on-demand liquidity out product in the markets of the United States would be made more difficult, according to Rosendin's opinion, if this were to take place. On the other hand, he is of the opinion that Ripple does not have to sell XRP directly to institutions in the United States in order to achieve success. Additionally, Rosendin claimed that Ripple is able to sell XRP currency to banks and other entities. In spite of the fact that the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) might be pleased with the financial penalties, there is a possibility that it might launch an appeal against the decision that was issued in July 2023 suggesting that secondary XRP sales are not regarded securities. This would be done in order to accomplish the aforementioned goal. A verdict from a higher court regarding this topic is not anticipated to be handed down this year, according to Fortune, which has pointed out that this is the case. Eleanor Terrett, a reporter for Fox Business, was informed by the Secretary of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission that the SEC has provided a remark on the final decision that was made in the Ripple case. A strong emphasis was placed by the CSE on the fact that the court acknowledged the egregious nature of Ripple's behavior. As a result of the district judge's decision, the corporation was required to pay a fine of $125 million. Ripple was found to have breached rigorous securities rules, and the analysts at Torres came to the conclusion that the company had committed major violations. The Securities and Exchange Commission had recommended a penalty that was significantly greater, equal to $2 billion. However, the final figure was substantially lower than what was originally estimated. However, this is not the finish of the story. There is a possibility that Ripple is exulting in the partial triumph that the SEC may disclose at a later point. Determine what it could possibly be. Do you want to continue? Despite the reduction in fines, the Securities and Exchange Commission may still consider appealing certain aspects of the case. This is because the Securities and Exchange Commission is in the position of being able to appeal certain aspects of the case. It is possible that the agency will take issue with the summary judgment ruling that was granted in July of 2023, despite the fact that it is quite unlikely that the agency will fight the most recent order on various remedies. Ripple's point of view and the reaction of the market were taken into consideration when this opinion categorized secondary XRP sales as non-security transactions. Nevertheless, Terrett acknowledges that the fine was substantially more than the $10 million that the company had hoped for, despite the fact that Ripple has framed the final ruling as a big success. It is something that even Mark Fagel emphasizes, and that is the fact that the decision of the court to punish Ripple was significantly more harsh than what Ripple had argued for. In particular, Ripple was of the opinion that the appropriate punishment ought to be somewhat less severe. Rather than that, the court decided to impose a fine that was 1,150% higher than the amount that Ripple had recommended. On the other hand, the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) views the outcome as a degree of vain. The price of XRP experienced a large increase as a direct result of the revelation that the verdict had been made, with its value having increased by more than 20% in just 24 hours. The trade volumes of XRP trading were higher than the daily trading volumes of major cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. This was the case even in South Korea, where the trade volumes of XRP trading were higher. When is it going to be an end? It is still unclear whether or not Ripple's legal battle with the financial regulator is truly finished. This is due to the fact that the SEC may still submit an appeal of the most recent ruling. It has been noted by legal specialists working in the realm of Bitcoin, such as attorney Preston Byrne, that they believe an appeal will most certainly be filed. The initial success that Ripple achieved was one that Byrne admitted he had not anticipated. Ripple's development into jurisdictions outside of the United States over the past several years may, however, minimize the consequences of any potential new constraints placed on the company's operations in the United States in the event that the Supreme Court decides to appeal the decision. Ripple should be required to pay a fine of $125 million by the Securities and Exchange Commission, which would be a big triumph for the company. This is a big decrease from the initial requirement of $2 billion that was provided. An appeal against the verdict may be submitted by the watchdog within 60 days of the verdict. Nevertheless, it is highly probable that Ripple will comply with the order of the court. Did we reach the point of no return? Since December of 2020, Ripple and the United States Securities and Exchange Commission have been engaged in a legal struggle that has been going on for quite some time. On August 7th, a crucial milestone was reached in this continuing legal dispute. In accordance with the information provided by Crypto Potato, Judge Annalisa Torres issued the conclusion that the corporation is required to pay a fine of $125 million. Only 6% of the startling $2 billion that the regulator requested at the outset is represented by this sum. This request for a civil monetary penalty that was submitted by the Securities and Exchange Commission, SICA, has been partially granted, and the court will impose a penalty of $125 million. This request was made in secret. A portion of the motion for remedies and the entry of final judgment that was presented by the SEC is being granted, while another portion of it is being refused. In accordance with the official document, the court is going to issue a final verdict that will not only prevent Ripple from committing any other violations of the securities rules, but it will also impose a civil penalty of $125 million. The verdict, which marked the completion of the dispute, was hailed by a number of individuals in the cryptocurrency sector as a huge triumph for Ripple. As a consequence of this, the decision swiftly became one of the topics that received the greatest attention in the Bitcoin industry. The litigation, on the other hand, has the potential to drag on for a longer amount of time because both sides remain open to the prospect of appealing the decision. According to the American attorney Fred Rispoli, who had previously projected that a settlement may be announced on July 31st, the deadline for submitting an appeal is 60 days after the day on which the announcement was made. Jeremy Hogan, an additional attorney from the United States who has been deeply involved with the facts of the case throughout the past few years, has suggested that a ruling from the Supreme Court is still a possibility, which suggests that the official conclusion may still be in the process of being determined. It is the highest court in the United States, and its rulings are final. There is no possibility for appeals. The Supreme Court of the United States is the highest court in the country. If someone were to campaign for something, who would it be like? As a result of the announcement that was made by the chief executive officer of the company, Brad Garlinghouse, it is reasonable to assume that Ripple will comply with the regulations that the court has imposed and will not appeal the verdict. According to him, the magistrates decreased the initial demand that was made by the SEC by around 94, and he referred to the conclusion as a success for his group. As he continued, he stated that we are in a position to continue expanding our business and that we are respectful of the ruling that the court previously made. It would appear that the Securities and Exchange Commission is the institution that is more willing to appeal the decision. On the other hand, a large number of users of X have pointed out that such a move would not be appropriate because of the forthcoming presidential elections in the United States. If the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) were to decide to appeal the Ripple case, they would be required to do so immediately prior to the presidential election in the United States. This would be the worst conceivable time for both the SEC and Gensler. It should be noted that the material that has been supplied is not intended to serve as business advice. In the event that any investments are made on the basis of the information that is provided on this page, there is no responsibility for those investments. Prior to making any choice on investments, we strongly